good friends.
But I didn't mean this.
Thursday it'll be a year.
A wife,
Jen passed away, my wife.
a good friend.
So yeah. Yes, I'm heading in that direction.
Well, I'll probably say Mr. Timber. It does.
I'd like to call the Maumelle City Council meeting to order. The first order of business is invocation and pledge of allegiance. I've asked Councilmember Vapurzian to lead us in that tonight.
Father, we love you. We thank you tonight for your goodness to us. We thank you most of all for forgiveness through your Son and what he made possible for us. We thank you for this time of year where we can reflect on the gifts that have been given to us. We think of our nation, that you would have your hand upon us, God, and our hearts would be turned to you. I pray that you bless our meeting this evening, and that we would use the wisdom that you provide for us. Bless our military. Think of the men and women who are away from families, and we'll get to celebrate with the ones that they love the most, that you would give them safety and protect them. Think of those who are injured and even fatalities in the train wreck on the West Coast today. You be with those families. Bless our meeting this evening, and may we honor you in all that we say and do. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Skipped one thing before we got started, was that Councilmember Anderson is not with us tonight. He's still recovering, I assume. And City Attorney Norris will not be with us tonight, and he warned y'all that last time. So if y'all had any legal questions, I hope y'all contacted him before he left on Friday afternoon. So if not, you may have to wait till he returns. So. All right, the next item is special guests and announcements, and we have Mr. Tad Bohannon with us tonight from Central Arkansas Water. He's going to give us an update, I think, on the water transmission lines. So.
Good evening, everybody. How are you tonight? Glad to be here. I do have some good news. I'm going to push this back just a little bit so it's not. There we go. I do have some good news. As you know, we've been working on a 30-inch transmission line, and we started it last year and promised it would be ready by March, and it's actually ahead of schedule. They're doing pressure testing and sterilization of it right now. And so by February, and then we'll have to kind of begin the transition to move CAW water into the system and push the Maumelle well water out of position. But our plan right now is that by February 1st of 2018, everybody will be on the CAW lake water coming out of the Wilson treatment plant. And so we'll begin making that transition, and we're pretty excited about that, which is ahead of schedule. Always like to come in ahead of schedule. But the contractors have done a very good job. I've been hearing good reports about the construction work and repair of the damaged areas where they've gone in and dug things up, and repair of sod and what have you. Got a little bit, few little things tonight I became aware of that we can follow up on. So, but if you're aware of anything, or if there's any issues out there of things that we need to make sure the contractor gets cleaned up and finished up, please let us know so we can get that taken care of. The other good news is that come January 1, all the bills that'll be finished, mailed after January 1, the surcharge will be being reduced by a little over $4 because the short-term transition charge will be coming off of the bill. So the surcharges will be reduced a little bit commencing January 1. And so, because we've paid for all the transition expenses, and then those will be coming down. So we'll take care of that. So we got changing of water in February, removal of the transition charge in January. We will also be switching to CAW rates. Right now, while we had the Maumelle treatment plant open, we continued to charge the rates that Maumelle Water had in place before the consolidation. And come February 1, we will begin billing at CAW rates. There's slight differences there. The The watershed protection fee is 45 cents, where the wellhead protection fee was 75 cents. So there's a little bit lower there. And I forgot, Doug Shackelford is here with me, and he has a letter that we will be mailing out to everybody in Maumelle to tell them these exact things that we're talking about today as far as the reduction of the surcharge and the transition of the rates. The other thing that will start occurring come February is we'll start replacing meters. A number of the meters in the Maumelle system are very old, and they bill on gallons, and CAW bills on 100 cubic feet, CCF. So we will start replacing the meters. We will start with the commercial meters, and we'll begin replacing those, and then come April or May, we'll start replacing all of the residential meters. Now, this does a couple of things. The reason we're waiting till April and May is to establish the winter average for wastewater purposes, so that wastewater can be billed off of the winter average. But it will then also comply with CAW's rates, which are in CCF, and so that we won't have to be using a calculation to convert from gallons as what's on the meters to CCF. Now, this is where we're going to get the phone calls, and I don't know how we're going to make it any simpler, but we're going to try to make it as simple as we can, is that as we change meters, there's going to be a bill that everybody's going to get on the month that their meter is changed that is going to look really goofy, because it's going to have the water consumption up until the day that meter was changed in gallons, and then it's going to, and a read and a final read, and then it's going to have the meter read for the rest of that period after that changes in CCF. So it's going to happen for everybody sometime during 2018, sometime between April and probably October, that all the residential meters are going to get that change. We're going to communicate with people. We're going to send out letters. We're going to do everything we can do, but we're just going to have that 1 month where they get a bill that's part CCF and part gallons, and it's just going to look goofy, and I don't know what we can do about it. We've been looking at it and trying to figure out how to make it work, but that's going to go in, and that doesn't go into this letter. It's not talked about in great deal, but that will be happening. And so when that occurs, we'll sending out more communication, but it's going to probably take a little bit of hand holding to make sure everybody gets through that time, and that'll be sometime over the summer. So things are moving along really smoothly. We're excited about it. We're ready to get everybody moved over to the lake water coming out of the Wilson treatment plant. And then at that point, we'll be shutting down the water treatment plant. Don't ask me what we're going to do with it yet. We don't know yet. If anybody has any ideas what to do with an old water treatment plant sitting in the middle of a country club, I'm open for ideas. I'm thinking paintball, go in there and let kids have a place to play, but we'll figure out what we're going to do with it. And of course, we have the office building over here. The mayor has talked to me about that, and we need to move forward on what we're going to be doing with that, but we'll be sure to let you know. So, did I miss anything, Doug? No, sir. Any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Bohannon?
One quick question. When we go over to your CAW rates,
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned about a little bit of reduction in one thing. Overall, will it be a little higher, a little lower? What do you think?
Overall, it'll be a little lower. It's going to vary how much lower depending on what size meter you have. And one of the things, and give you more information, I guess, rather than less. That's always a good thing. One of the things that's interesting we noticed is a number of the houses have 3/4 inch meters. And so normally we run houses off of 5/8 inch meters, and just like we did with the city where we reduced the meter and it reduced the minimum monthly charge, as we change out meters, we're going to send out letters saying, unless you tell us not to, we're going to put in a 5/8 inch meter to lower your bill even more. Now, if we're also going to be looking at the readings, and if it's a house that has consistently high readings, high water usage, then we're going to look at those and talk to those homeowners even more to say, do you want to stay with a 3/4 inch meter for higher pressure and that type of stuff, given the amount of water you're using. But most residences only need a 5/8 inch meter, and a number of the residences here have a 3/4 inch meter. And so to save the ratepayers more, we'll be changing that at that time, but they won't go down to that 5/8 inch rate till we actually change out those meters. And then they'll see even another reduction in that part. Where most residences are going to see the big reduction in their rates is actually on the sprinkler rates. If you remember under the Maumelle water, they had an increased sprinkler rate to discourage use of water by the water because of the lack of availability of water. They had a conservation measure in place, so they had a higher rate on the sprinklers, and we don't have that. So that's where most residences will see the biggest reduction, is if they're using their water for water in their lawns and what have you. They won't have that higher water rate that we had on there for yard sprinklers.
Sounds good.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, just a follow-up question on what you were just speaking to. Let's say that you came out and changed my meter to a 5/8 inch.
Mm-hmm.
How is that going to affect, first of all, the water pressure, and second of all, the volume of water that I'm getting, for example, taking a shower? Will it affect that?
By the time it gets into your house, it won't affect it at all.
Okay.
Now, if you're trying to take a shower, run the dishwasher, wash a load of clothes, and somebody's filling up the bathtub, it could make a difference.
I'll tell my wife to quit doing that.
Okay. You know, most people don't anyway because the hot water tank can't hold enough hot water to get all those things done. But, or if you're, the other place it could make a difference is if your sprinkler zones are large and you don't have a separate sprinkler meter, and you're up in the morning trying to take a shower at the same time that you're watering your lawn, then it could also, and that's why we'll let people know and say, if you don't want it, tell us, we won't reduce it. But if you just want to save a little on your water bill, we'll put it in the smaller meter.
Now, you're going to be changing the sprinkler meter too?
We'll change both,
Okay. And the sprinkler meter will also be changed to 5/8 unless we...
unless you tell you not to.
Okay. Very good.
Okay?
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? It's always a pleasure coming out here. We're really excited things are transitioning smoothly, and I hope it's worked for you all too. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bohannon.
I would mention one thing, they're going to do their academy again this spring.
correct.
So you can do it again if you all want to do it this spring. It'll be available.
Okay.
It's that thing I went to.
Right, yeah, where you toured the plant and all that, yeah.
Right.
Yep. Okay.
Nothing else. I'm going to step out. Thank you all very much.
Thank y'all for coming. Merry Christmas. All right, next item is approval of the minutes of the December 4th regular meeting. You have a copy of those minutes in your packet, and I think you were given a revised set right before the meeting by the city clerk that had some corrections in them. Is there any additions or corrections to the minutes as you received them?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the December 4th minutes, regular meeting minutes. Is there any discussion on that motion?
Yeah, I was just going to, I didn't review what you passed out there. I think it was just a typo on the November. Is that all?
That's literally the only change.
Okay. All right. That's all. Thanks.
Okay, is there any other discussion on the motion to approve the minutes of December the 4th? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. Motion passes. Next item is public comment. I have no public comment cards tonight on any items, whether they're on the agenda or not on the agenda. So we'll move on to the financial statement review. You have a copy of the financials in your packet, and Ms. Vega is here to do a presentation tonight. So, Ms. Vega?
Good evening. So these are the November monthly financials that we're looking at. First, in looking at the variances here, The top one, the 130, that's the sanitation fund, and it is down, but the reason that it's down is because the reimbursements that we're getting from the state, and that's about $180,000 that we got in December that's not reflected. And so all of these variances are within 3% of the budget. And so I'm happy to report that. Next slide. This is the general fund, the major revenue sources, and under county millage, we're up 3% over prior year. In the county sales tax, which is the next one over, it's up 1% over prior year, and the city sales tax is down 6% over a prior year. On the street fund, and these are revenue sources again. The first one is the state turnback. It's up 6% over prior year. The street aid is the middle graph, and it's up 5% over prior year. And the county millage in the third picture is up 2% over prior year. The sanitation fees are virtually flat to prior year. This is the general expense fund for November. Administration is down from prior year 4%. And I believe that's due to the open position in HR and the finance director position. If you look at police, they're flat to prior year and budget, and the fire department is flat to budget over prior year, and that's due to the fire truck that was purchased earlier in the year. And on city services, the last graph, we're down 8% over prior year for city services. This is just a different depiction of our general fund spending, and as you can see, police and fire is where we spend most of our money. And then you can see the other areas, how that works out in the pie. Okay, this is a graph of where we are compared to our total budget, and we should be right at 92% at this point in the year, and all of our funds are below that, at or below that, and so we expect everybody to come in under budget or at budget. Okay, these are expenses for the street fund. We're down, I forgot to calculate that. If you look at other operating expenses, that variance is the variance that I was referring to a minute ago about the $180,000 that we got reimbursed for in December. That's the design fees for the third entrance. It's the second graph, and the green is so high. We have collected around $460,000 in reimbursements on that expense year to date. And we only pay 20%. And then on sanitation, the variance in the second picture for 2017 is the automated dump truck. Are there any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vega. There's not any questions. Do I hear a motion to accept the financial statement as submitted? Second. We got a motion and a second to approve the financial statement as submitted for the month of November 2017. Is there any discussion on that motion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. Motion passes. Next item is a procedural motion. I need a motion from the floor to read all resolutions and ordinances by title only tonight.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion second to read all resolutions and ordinances by title only tonight. Is there a discussion on that motion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. Motion passes. First item under the unfinished business is the third reading of ordinance number 947, community service fee. Madam City Clerk, if you'd read that by title only.
Be it enacted by the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled Ordinance Number 947, an ordinance repealing the community service fee upon satisfaction of specific contingencies.
Okay, this is on third reading, and this is basically if the special election is successful on March the 13th, with the tax that we call the public safety tax, then the community service fee would be eliminated if that tax passes. It's not contingent on the bond tax, as it's called, or the one that would allow the construction of the interchange and the sewer projects, but it's only the public safety tax. But if that one passes, and then after collection of that sales tax begins, the community service fee would be repealed.
Motion to approve ordinance 947.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 947. Is there any discussion on that motion? If not, Madam City Clerk, roll call vote.
Councilmember Holt,
Yes.
Councilmember Vapurzian,
Yes.
Councilmember Timmons,
Yes.
Councilmember Williams, Councilmember Kelly,
Yes.
Councilmember Saunders,
Yes.
Councilmember Mosley.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-4 and 1 absent. Moving on to new business, we have the first item is facility board appointment. It's actually a confirmation. Mr. Tom Booth is currently serving on the facilities board, and he had reapplied, and he's the only person to reapply for that position. We advertised it back earlier this year, and the facilities board has recommended that he be put back into the position, and then I also agree with that he be appointed. And so what it states in the ordinance is that the council confirms that motion, basically, that he be put on there.
Motion to approve his confirmation of Mr. Booth to be appointed.
A motion and a second to approve the confirmation of Mr. Tom Booth to the facility board appointment. Is there a discussion on that motion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
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 Any opposed, say no. All right, thank you very much.
Point of order, Mr.
Okay.
Mayor, you need to recognize Alderman Mosley.
That's all right. I didn't have a problem with the appointment. I was just going to ask you if there's any activities that the facilities board's doing. You never hear anything about it? No.
Well, the last thing they did was the library bond issue. They did that. They came before the council also, but the facilities board, the actual bonds are through them, is the way it's set up. So that's the only thing they've done recently. In fact, that's part of it. They haven't met because they hadn't had any business to conduct, and so that was one of the reasons, a little bit of delay in getting this appointment. So,
Okay.
yeah, but as of right now, there's not anything that, they did a lot of work, if you remember, with the charter school during some of their building projects and all that when it was on city land. So they were real heavily involved and pretty busy during that time frame. But since then, they've dealt with the library bonds because we can issue our own bonds typically. Now, we could go through them on a project or something like that to issue bonds also, but the city currently doesn't have any issued through the facility board.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Next item is Resolution 2017-30, the remodel permit fees. Madam City Clerk, if you'd read that by title only.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, a resolution to be entitled Resolution Number 2017-30, authorizing refunds for each repair or remodel permit fee that exceeded the amount subsequently allowed by Ordinance Number 943.
Okay, Ordinance 943 changed the language in our building code so that you don't pay more than what new construction would cost you when you do a remodel permit. And so, this is an opportunity, and if the council chooses to do it, they can. If they don't choose to do it, they don't have to. But basically, what we would do, the ordinance passed on, or was adopted by the council on October the 16th. We went back 6 months to April the 16th, 2017, and said, what if we refunded the money to those people? And basically, it would amount to $12,433 that would be refunded back to two residential building permits, and both of those were either fire or damage due to a windstorm, or 3 commercial permits. Now, the library's permit alone, they would be refunded $9,588 of the $12,433 that would be part of that refund. So 3/4 of the amount refunded is the library project. But it's up to the council. We discussed that at one point in time, I think, about going back and refunding it. If we went back just to the beginning of the year, you'd add another $359 permit to that. 3/3. So back to 3/3 is when that one was issued. Alderman or Councilmember Vapurzian?
Question on the residential.
Okay.
We're going to refund that. Does that go to the homeowner or to the insurance company? Because if it was due to damage, I'm assuming insurance covered the cost.
It would go back to the person that paid it. So that would not be the insurance company. That would be the contractor or the
Just a question.
yeah. But that we would refund it back to the person that
Right.
wrote the check to us.
Okay.
Councilmember Holt?
Is there an idea of about how many dollars total we're probably looking at for all of the refunds? I mean, it may have to do.
$12,433.
Did I just miss that?
Yes, sir.
Was I in La La Land?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I apologize.
I don't know where you were, but yes, sir. I went through that. I said,
We were thinking of,
I said the library's portion of that would be $9,588.
okay, all right,
So, which would be about 3/4 of that amount.
okay.
Motion to approve resolution 2017.
Second.
We have a motion to approve resolution 2017-30. Is there any discussion on that motion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. Motion passes. Next item is resolution number 2017-31, approving an operating budget for 2018. Madam City Clerk, if you'd read that by title only.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, Pulaski County, Arkansas, Resolution 2017-31, a resolution of the Maumelle City Council adopting a budget for the operation of the city for the calendar year 2018.
Okay, there was a slight revision from when you saw this the last time. I had a salary wrong by about $5,000, so it added to the overall budget. It added $5,321 once you added in FICA and Medicare, and that results into a 0.04%. So not 4%, but 0.04% increase in the budget. What I did was I changed the other appropriation from the fund balance from $865,000 to $870,000 to make that work, but it was a salary that I had wrong in the senior services department from day one. For some reason, I had a wrong salary keyed in my amounts when I was figuring it out. But that's the only change that's been made to this budget that you have in front of you and the one that you saw at the last budget meeting. Any discussion? Councilmember Mosley?
Yeah, I have decided I am going to go ahead and vote no on this budget. I just can't go with increasing the operating costs by $425,000, especially when actual revenue looks to be about the same as it was maybe in 2016. for 2017. I just worry about that trend, and we haven't seen audited numbers yet for 2016. So I'm just uncomfortable, and will be voting no. I will be attending the Municipal League budget workshop in September, and we'll. I may write a memo to the city council after that, and maybe try to recommend some tweaks in our process or something like that. I feel like we should be starting with the expense numbers of the year before when we first start our budgeting process, and go from there, where we add things in as opposed to cutting things that have been submitted by the department heads. It's just an awkward process for us, but there may not be a better way, but I'm going to give it a shot. So
I'd love to have a better way. So I've tried several ways.
yeah, thank you.
During the discussion on the resolution? If not, do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and second. We have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 2017-31. Is there any discussion on that motion? If not, all those in favor, I do want to say one thing before you vote on it. We added the language that it's added in the section 2 of the resolution, and it's also added in the budget itself also, that we talked about at the last budget meeting. So, and there was one slight change in that. I do need to mention that. It's the words, and our city attorney added them. He thought it needed to be added. So the minutes the statement I gave y'all at the budget meeting didn't include, if you look in the very first line, and the mayor may authorize. So the mayor can deny that request also, is basically what he was saying. It's got to have the mayor's authorization. So city department heads may request, and the mayor may authorize. So basically the way it read earlier, the city department heads could request transfers, but it didn't say how they were approved or anything like that.
Okay.
So he added that language last week in there, so.
That language looked fine. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so all those in favor of approving resolution number 2017-31, please signify by saying yes.
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 Any opposed, say no.
No.
Motion passes. Next item is resolution number 2017-32, amending the 2017 street fund budget. Madam City Clerk, if you'd read that by title only.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Maumelle, Pulaski County, Arkansas, resolution number 2017-32, a resolution to amend the 2017 street fund budget.
Okay, if y'all will remember back in, on November the 6th, I gave you a letter that basically told you that Central Arkansas Planning and Development, who was going to help cover our 20% match of the adaptive traffic signal because of a lawsuit at the Supreme Court in Wilson versus Walther, they pulled that funding. So, so I'd put money in the budget for next year to cover this, but I got an invoice last part of November, and it said this invoice is due when the equipment is shipped. Well, I thought, well, it'll take them a while to ship the equipment. Wrong. They shipped the equipment, and so all the equipment is now at the installer's office. It is insured. It has been delivered, and typically on a contract, you pay stored materials once they receive the materials in, because they have to pay for their equipment also. So what I'm requesting is the $50,000 revision to pay our portion of the 20% match. So the bill's a little over $500,000 for the equipment, $552,000. And so the Highway Department will be reimbursing 80% of that through the federal program, but the 6/13 of 20% is about 9%. And so that's where I came up with the $50,000 amount. It's coming out of the street fund budget, not the general fund budget. So that's the reason for it, and that's why I wrote the whereas. I tried to explain it in the whereas is what it is, but I didn't know how clear that was to everybody. It's clear to me, but it may have been clear as mud to y'all. But we actually thought they wouldn't have shipped the equipment till next year, but they've already shipped it. Councilmember Kelly?
So was this amount in next year's budget?
Well, I have some money in next year's budget. I had $70,000 because this is a partial of the contracted amount. So I will use some of that money next year, but we might be able to reduce it. But by the time this all got worked out, I was already dealing with the budget. I mean, we could have reduced it down, but if you'll just I'll keep note of that and keep y'all reported as it goes along. There's also these invoices don't include cameras or modems for the system that we're going to have to add in there. It does include all the equipment that goes inside of the cabinets, but it doesn't include, or the bid didn't include cameras. We didn't know exactly what cameras we were going to go with on the bid, and it also doesn't include a modem at each site. Now, the modems are fairly inexpensive, but, I mean, there's still going to be a installation charge on that also. So I'll keep you informed, but there's another $70,000 in next year's budget, and a large part of it was this same invoice, though.
Okay.
But this is a partial invoice, not a full invoice. So I'm only trying to pay for what I need to pay for this year out of this year's budget.
So you anticipate next year will be 20,000, or maybe we'll have to add
A little
some
more than
modem or whatever?
20,000, yes, sir. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions?
Motion to approve resolution 2017-32.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve resolution 2017-32. Is there a discussion on that motion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
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 Any opposed, say no. Motion passes. Moving on to mayor's comments, we have our first town hall meeting on January the 18th at 6 p.m. at the First Baptist Church. That will be on the sales tax elections. So we get the word out. We'll get more word out about that, but wanted to let y'all know the first date that we are going to have one of those and plan to have another one in February also. Wanted to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And I just wanted to make one other comment while I'm here. Under the FYI, you've got an opioid litigation engagement letter. If you've been reading the newspaper in the Arkansas Democrat Gazette the last few days, the counties in Arkansas are suing the pharmaceutical companies that have supplied the opioids to try to recoup some of the costs that police department and fire departments and emergency personnel are having to deal with when they have an overdose due to opioids. It's going to be very similar to the tobacco litigation that took place. There is no cost to the city. It's a contingent fee, basically. So if the attorneys win the case, they get paid. If they don't win the case, they don't get paid. But the cities will get some money from it. And there was a note from Mark Hayes. Anybody that's a part of the Legal Defense Fund through the Arkansas Municipal League, they asked them to be part of the lawsuit. So that is part of it. And then if you saw 60 Minutes last night, you saw a huge article saw a huge story about the DEA and them trying to go after one of the big drug manufacturers and get fines levied against them. They got a $150 million settlement with them, but they were going for $1 billion originally. And there's an article in today's paper that talks about that specifically. And West Virginia, I believe it is that's number one in the United States in prescriptions for opioids, and Arkansas is number 2.
Wow.
So
it's not a good thing.
yeah, I printed that letter, or at least part of it. It was
Right.
long, and you know, I just don't understand. I've lived here 40 years from Texas, and love the state. And how can we be number 1 and number 2 in so many different items that are, you know, we get all the bad news. And I don't see. It's a fabulous place to live, and what is it that's different about us? I mean, I don't understand. It breaks my heart to hear things like that.
Yeah, but a lot of it is just I guess people didn't realize how addictive those things could be and all that stuff when they were written. And what typically happens, I mean, it happened to me. You go to a dentist to have a procedure done, and they give you a full week's supply of these opioids. So there's like 24 in that bottle. Well, I took one of them and I didn't like it. I mean, it made me feel really funny. And then I just set the jar in our cabinet and just left it sitting there. Now there's 23 of these cabinets or 23 of these pills in a cabinet that somebody else could get a hold of. luckily I don't have teenagers in my house currently, but I'm got grandchildren that come around. So, I mean, trying to protect them. So then finally I just threw that stuff away because I wasn't going to take it again, you know, because it made me feel funny. But some people, they take it and they like the way it feels, and then they can't get enough of it. And then it leads to heroin. I mean, that's the, you know, heroin's an opioid. So then if they can't get the prescription drugs, they go buy heroin. And so, and that's, you know, the issue that we're dealing with. I mean, we run on overdoses in our community, and luckily we carry Narcan now, and it's been deployed. And if you can get to somebody quick enough, they can use Narcan on them, and it'll hopefully bring them back from an overdose. But there are expenses being incurred all over the United States because of this abuse of this opioid. Now, did it start with the drug manufacturers? I don't know, but the lawyers are saying it did. It's just like the tobacco settlement that went through, and so we're a part of that. But like I say, it doesn't cost the city anything. I wouldn't look for a quick resolution of this. You know, it may still be in court 10 years from now, but we need to be a part of it. The municipal league thinks it's a good idea to be a part of this, and so they've hired some. And it's not a class action lawsuit. It is a multidiscipline litigation, is what they call it, which is a totally different thing. And but the people they've hired to do it, there's a local firm, and then there's a firm out of Atlanta, Georgia, I believe, is the other firm that they hired. So, but I've included that in your packet because it is very important.
That same thing happened to me. My daughter and son-in-law had to come get me, and we went to the emergency room in Conway, and you know, whatever. And the doctor gave me a prescription for, I didn't know that's what it was, but I took one like you did, and I went into La La Land like I did a while ago, I guess. But I said no more, and they're in my kitchen cabinet. So now that I know what they are, I'll throw them away.
Well, you need to take them to a drug take back. Don't dispose of them down the drain or anything like that. If you would, yeah, that's not a good idea either, because if we dispose of our pharmaceuticals down the drain, that gets into the water and then starts affecting fish life and animals and all that stuff too. So yeah, it's best to take them to our drug take back that we do in April and October, if you can. Or there's places that you can take them to on there's a couple of, I think Pulaski County Sheriff's Department has a place you can dispose of them at year round. So yeah.
We wouldn't want the fish to get hooked on them.
Well, then you might eat those fish once you hook them. So. All right. Next item is Planning Commission report, and that will be done at the next meeting in January. They have a meeting on December the 26th, 28th. Yeah. Any council members' comments? Councilmember Mosley?
I notice we've got a couple of planning commission vacancies coming up. Do we know who's currently in the positions that are up for renewal?
Craig Johnson and Adrian Green.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Vapurzian?
I was just reading through City and Town this evening and talked about the incredible revenue lost for e-sales, lack of sales tax. Statewide, other than what we've done here, do you know what Municipal League is doing, or is that a federal deal, or is it state by state?
Well, it's a federal deal, but there's also the state of South Dakota has filed a lawsuit, and so the Supreme Court should be hearing that relatively soon. Yeah. And if you remember, we passed a resolution earlier this year, but we watered ours down. The Municipal League wants you to pass a resolution that says action should be taken at the federal level and the state level. But especially if the South Dakota lawsuit gets reviewed by the Supreme Court, then that shows that it is important. But the issue is, I mean, you know, we said that we appealed to our federal elected officials to do something with it. And on the federal side, there's one gentleman that's there that, and I forget his name right now, but he's holding up the hearing to allow it to move forward, basically to come to a vote, basically on the House side of it. The Senate's passed it once, and then they're ready to pass it again, but they're going to wait till the House does it. And then state of Arkansas considered it in the state legislature last year, but it didn't go forward because they kept saying it's a federal issue, it's not a state issue. But if the Supreme Court will rehear Quill lawsuit, and Quill is a mail order place from years ago that they ruled that that states didn't have the authority to tax somebody like that. And so that's set the precedent. So that's got to be reheard and by the Supreme Court, and it's got to be overturned by the Supreme Court before the states could actually do anything. But it is an important. I mean, that's I don't know how much it's affecting us by city, but I know it's affecting us. There's no doubt in my mind.
I would think Maumelle more than many. I mean, you think of our senior percentage and how many people are shopping on Amazon. I shop on Amazon every week. Online sales are huge. I would think Maumelle, it's going to be a higher percentage than others.
Well, it very well could be. And Amazon they collect the sales tax now voluntarily.
But did they remit?
Have we seen anything?
Well, we can't find out. I mean, I can call the DF&A all day long. They won't tell me who sends sales tax to the city of Maumelle. They're not allowed to by law. So we don't know that. But Amazon says they remit it. Okay, I'll say that. And they say they remit it, but it's only if it comes out of their warehouses. Okay, you should see it on your bill if it comes out of their warehouse. But a lot of the stuff that you order from Amazon, it's third party. They're operating as the internet provider and the pay person, but it doesn't actually come out of their warehouse. It may come out of a different warehouse. And I ordered some stuff through Amazon, but when it came, there was no tax charge, and it came from the company that shipped it out of Denver, Colorado. It didn't say Amazon. It said XYZ, company on it. So they say they're collecting. Well, most of the stuff they do, I think, comes out of a third-party warehouse now. So I'm sure we're getting some of it, but we're not getting what we, would be getting if it was purchased at a local business here in town. Now, do we have a lot of the stuff that you purchase from Amazon? No, but there's still, my story's been, I didn't know you could buy a mattress online 10 years ago, but, now you can buy a mattress and they ship it to your door in a box and you pull it out and it fills up and, you use it. But they're not paying a sales tax on that if they don't have an operation in Arkansas. So, and furniture you can order online and everything else now. So, where, a few years ago, back in the late 2009, 8, somewhere in there, we got point of delivery in Arkansas. So if you buy your furniture at a furniture store in North Little Rock, but they deliver it to Maumelle, we collect the sales tax. We saw an increase in our sales tax after that was passed. So we know that was being collected and it was happening. But the internet's a totally different situation since it's coming from a company that's out of state. But if it comes from Diller, if you order something from Dillers.com, you pay a sales tax on it because they're in the state and you're in the state. So they collect it and remit it and then send it to the state. Councilmember Timmons?
For the March 13th special election, will we be allowed to, or is there an early voting?
There is an early voting, yes. It'll be the week before.
That's great. Thank you.
And she's asking that question because that's when the National League of Cities, I think, is that correct? Yeah. National League of Cities will be March 10th through the 14th, I believe is when that is, or 11th through the 14th. So that will affect some people that are here. So, anything else from council members? Our city attorney is out. Madam City Clerk?
You guys have, I've included the Planning Commission liaison. If you can take a look at it and check your schedules to see which ones you would be available to attend. Councilmember Williams, you're scheduled for December this year. Just a reminder. I'll be happy to stick around a couple minutes after the meeting if anyone wants to volunteer for that January meeting. And let's see. The statement of financial interest that is coming up, I am going to send that out to you all via email with instructions. I know most of you know how to do that, but I'll send instructions and also the form with that. Wanted to remind the council members who are attending the winter conference for ARML In Fort Smith, the dates are the 10th through the 12th. That is Wednesday through Friday. Registration, it begins about 1 o'clock that afternoon through 7 o'clock. If you have your city in town this month, December, it does have a preliminary agenda. If you didn't get it or for some reason you do not get those, I also have a preliminary agenda. Just let me know and I'll be happy to give that to you, hard copy or email. As you guys can see, there are those 2 seats that are becoming available for the Planning Commission. Those will be advertised in a publication beginning January, the first week of January. We have had an application submitted already for one of those seats. And then I told you guys at the last meeting that I would give you an update on the audit as to when you can expect to receive it. I have been in communication with our auditors, and they have completed the field work, and we are anticipating receiving a completed audit by the end of February, early March. That's all I have. Do you guys have any questions? I see some perplexed looks.
That's a long time for an audit. We used to get them in July of the following year. That's a long time.
What's the holdup?
Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of it had to do with the lack of staff initially, and then gathering that information. And I myself included didn't realize that an audit is something you prepare for all year, and so we basically had to start from scratch, and that's just how long it took to gather those documents, submit those documents. They do their part, we do our part. We've put in many hours, and that's as soon as we can get it.
And when you say lack of staff, our staff or their
Our staff, but because we didn't have, the key player in doing an audit would be a finance director, and we didn't have that, so it threw us off.
but that was their. I mean, they would have liked to have maybe done it earlier, but
Yeah, they had us scheduled for right the end of April, 1st of May is when they always do our audits so that they can get it out quickly. Well, they weren't able to do that this year because we didn't have a finance director at that time.
Okay.
So they didn't come till September, I believe it was, is when they started that. So, and they're also working on other audits. We're normally one of the first audits they do, and they're working on all their other audits. So now we're kind of in the mix with everybody else that, that they do later in the year. And so, yeah. But I'm sure they'll want to get it done, I would think, the end of January, because they'll start doing income tax returns as soon as they can, probably February 1 or somewhere around there. It's when they'll start doing income tax work for people. So I'm sure they'll do everything they can to have it done by the end of January. Now, there may be some final tweaks to it and things like that. But yeah.
All right, thank you. Do you know when those statements of financial interest are due?
January 31st.
January 31st, thank you. That's all I've got, thank you.
There's no other business to come before the council. I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and second to adjourn. All those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, say no. Meeting is adjourned.